Mike, you're good to go.
Okay, welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 9:17 a.m. Stephanie, can you please take attendance?
Of course, good morning. Ava Bermuda Zimmerman has not joined us yet. Britt Marie Cole Johnson. Britt Marie has not joined us yet. Ellen McKitterick,
Present.
Michael Soltis,
Present.
and Holly Williams.
Present.
Right, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. I would like to welcome and thank the members of the public for joining us. First item on the agenda, we'd like to review, ask the committee to review the minutes of the January 3rd, 2023 meeting and ask for a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain, Holly Williams, because I wasn't present at the last meeting.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay,
I'm sorry, Mike, I just want to just note for the note, Britt Marie, were you, welcome, by the way. Did you abstain? Oh,
Yes, I
thank you.
did. Thank you, Aaron. Good morning.
oh, good morning, Britt Marie. Okay, moving to the next agenda item. Aaron, would you please give us a report on the Aflac service level agreement metrics?
Certainly, I just wanted to give a quick update. Some of you have heard this before, but for 2022, we had service level agreement that included 18 metrics. Aflac met the metrics for 14, missed 4. And when I say missed, it's based on the cumulative yearly average. So we looked at it every month, but in terms of the miss, it was when you look at it overall for the year, they missed 4, 3 of which related to the timeliness of decision making and responses, which was not a surprise given some of the difficulties we had in the beginning of the year. And even though they improved over the course of the year, it wasn't quite enough. And they also, we have a 98% expectation of accuracy for benefit calculations, and they got a 95%. And so that was also a miss. As a result of those 4 metrics being missed, the sort of at-risk was 5% of the total annual administrative fees. And those 4 metrics equated to 33% of that 5% total, or approximately $375,000. So we're going to be getting a credit because of that miss. We have implemented various strategies to make sure that Aflac is better able to meet their service level requirements. Our goal is for them to actually meet them, not for us to get these offsets. So we're looking forward to even better better service levels this coming year. But we just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of what was going on in terms of the 2022 year-end total. Did anyone have any questions?
I have a question. So when is, I hear there's a plan in place to address those metrics. So when's the next time frame that you evaluate the metrics?
So I have a meeting on next Wednesday. Normally would have been Monday, but Monday is a state holiday. So it's Wednesday to meet with Aflac specifically to review their January performance. And so, as I said, we meet every month to look at the month performance. And so the next time I'll be getting those specific data points will be next Wednesday.
Okay. I presume some of these are going to take a little bit of time to meet the standard, so it's not going to be a 1 month thing.
Well, the kind of goal of having them reported monthly but calculated yearly is to make sure that we have consistency. So, you know, my hope and expectation is that they'll be hitting their marks each month, but we want to make sure that they, you know, so say that January went really, really well, we want to make sure that they continue that performance. I think one of the continuing struggles, candidly, is they've done a really great job responding to phone calls. They have put in place new protocols to respond to portal messages. That's one of the ones that I'm looking at to see how that is going, because that was taking them a little bit more time. So I want to look at and see about that. Decisions, I think, are being made pretty timely. They've been doing a pretty good job of hitting our expectations there, but that's another one that we're just always is top of mind. So we're just paying attention month over month.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? For Aaron on the Aflac service level agreement? Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item. Michael, will you please lead a discussion on the proposed revision to the consolidated policies?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And good morning, everybody. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see a PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, we can see your
Yes,
screen.
we can.
Thank you. So first of all, I apologize. I had intended to get the language to the committee in advance of this meeting. January really got away from me. I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like January only had maybe 20 days total because it's already February 7th, and I don't know how the year is passing this quickly. So I apologize for that. I wanted to go through the changes at a high level before the board meeting, and then we'll share the actual language changes with the entire board prior to the board meeting, which is also approaching very quickly. So these changes were not intended to be brand new policies. I believe I had shared last month that we were just going to review the existing consolidated policy documents and just make sure that they were still accurate and reflected how the program was intended to work. When we originally drafted those, it was late summer, early fall of 2021 before the benefits program launched. So it was a lot of very theoretical conversations about how the program would work as opposed to the when the rubber meets the road. So I've reviewed the document, made changes. I put them into 6 categories, but honestly, it's the categories aren't really that, you know, black and white. I just didn't want to have one giant list of all the changes because everyone's eyes would glaze over. Need to figure out how to share without. Perfect. Okay, so these are sort of in order from most technical to least technical. The first category is just typos, correcting grammar. We cited to sometimes the wrong policies or wrong statutes, so we made the corrections there. Second category is internal consistency, making sure that we use defined terms appropriately. So if we have a defined term, we should use it when we want to, and then making sure we don't overuse it. So as an example of an overuse, covered employees, I used that too often when I wrote the original draft because covered employees requires you to have received 23-25 during the base period. And I think I use it basically to refer to any time an employee was working for an employer in Connecticut. So, you know, that was not intentional. So I just wanted to make sure we were intentional with the use of that term. And then we just had a couple changes that were made over the course of last year and addressing the ripple effects into other policies. So with the employee refund and the holiday shutdown changes we made, making sure that other provisions of the policies address those as well. Third category, really just clarifications. I think should hopefully be obvious, but we wanted to actually write them out in the statute or in the policies as well. So for example, exempt employers are not required to contribute or to register with the CTPL authority. I think I had just put any employer in Connecticut was required to register. With respect to contributions, when we talked about unpaid contributions, we only refer to employees' contributions, but making it clear that we also meant sole proprietors and self-employed individuals who enrolled. And then when they provide contributions, they don't just send us money. We have to actually know what account to apply it to, the period of time that the payment is meant for, kind of we call that wage reporting, making sure that that's a part of the submission, and that's actually part of providing your contributions on time, are indicating what account this is for. Finally, there were 2 items in this section that refer to employer-provided benefits and when they potentially could impact a paid leave claim if they're received at the same time. So when it comes to severance payments, we're making it clear that if a release must be signed in order to receive those severance payments, we would not consider that income replacement because it's actually a payment for that release rather than replacing your income. And similarly for retirement plans, if you receive a distribution from a former employer, not the one you're taking leave from, or your most recent if you're unemployed, that wouldn't be considered, impactful to your claim, nor if you take them as a loan, because really you're going to have to pay that back. So it's not really a benefit. It's more of you've got an obligation for it. So just clarifying some circumstances where those benefits would not impact the paid leave claim, even if they were received at the same time as the paid leave claim. Moving on to the next slide, this category, the claim process correction, this is really where it was, once we started, administering the benefits, we made some minor changes and want to make sure the policies reflected those. So, for example, some employers that don't provide wage data to the Department of Labor for UI purposes, primarily religious employers, but also some nonprofits, depending on how they participate in UI. We had previously just kind of vaguely talked about accepting other documentation, but over the course of last year, we had created a form for this purpose. So we might as well include that form in the policy itself. Similarly, we corrected language I had around when we prorate. I had said that if you don't work for the entire calendar week, we would prorate the leave, but that's not the intent. It was always your work schedule. We don't expect everyone to work 7 days a week. We don't prorate if they fail to do so, or they fail to have leave for that entire week. So correcting that. Updating specific names of documents, to actually match the name of the document itself. Make sure we did that, and removing the checklist, which was one of the items that we had initially anticipated requiring on every claim, where they would check off each document they provided and sign a form. We didn't require that, so we removed that from the policies. We revised reporting requirements for intermittent leave. Originally, we had wrote that every 2 weeks they must notify us of all the leaves they took over that 2-week period of time. We updated that to 2 business days following the absence. And then finally, in this category is just making it clear that the authority can accept documentation on a non-CTPL form as long as it provides the same information. That had always been the process. If they wanted to provide us the DOL's medical certification form, we would accept that, but just making the policies reflect that as well. These last 2 categories, a little bit more substantive, but really the intent is really has always been the plan. This first category is about there are certain events that happen in a day that could change your leave, the impact to your leave, and making it clear what happens and if we kind of speak about that event to the minute or just for that day. And I realize what everything just said is very vague, but it makes more sense when I talk about the specifics. So if a claimant passes away during a paid leave period, an approved period, or they're taking care of a family member and the family member passes away, that would terminate the paid leave claim as of that date. But we're not going to say, well, the person passed away at 12:05 and therefore the period of time prior to 12:05 is approved and the period of time after is not. We didn't want to get into that minute calculation. So we just said, for the purposes of closing that claim, the effective date would be the first full day that the person's no longer alive. And similarly for pregnancy, the moment of delivery and as it impacts the 2 weeks that you can get during the course of a pregnancy, we didn't want to have to go and do that calculation and waste time and effort on when was the baby actually born, and the time prior to that is part of the extra 2 weeks. The time after is part of the kind of standard 12-week period. So we just said for the 2 weeks for pregnancy, the day of delivery is not part of that extra 2 weeks. And then finally, just another adjustment to the language around the bonding leave. We had already said that if bonding leave immediately follows the pregnancy recovery from childbirth leave and they never return to work, those were treated as the same claim and no new eligibility review was required. So we just added language that essentially said the calculation is going to remain consistent as well between those claims. We don't look at a new base period. We don't take into account the new minimum wage. It's just a continuation of the existing claim. And then last but not least, wages and earnings. We wanted to allow for circumstances where an employee was working in Connecticut for a non-covered employer, such as a municipality, local or regional board of education, and then began to participate because of a collective bargaining agreement. We didn't want to make them have to wait like 12 months to get all their base period wages in once they started participating. We can kind of retroactively include those wages from prior to participation towards their benefit amount or eligibility. So just making sure that was in the policy. And then reiterating that wages earned for service outside of Connecticut are not part of the CTPL program. That has always been the case. The statute refers to that, but it's in the definition of employee and the definition of employer, which just might be, it's easy to have that be missed. So making sure the policy specifically reflected that those are defined terms in our statute. And if you're an employee colloquially, that doesn't necessarily mean you're covered. You have to be an employee performing service in Connecticut. And then finally, subject earnings and total wages defined in our statute. They both refer to the same statutory citation in UI. So they're essentially intended to be the same. The only difference is subject earnings are subject to the Social Security cap, whereas total wages aren't. And then we use them for slightly different purposes, where subject earnings are used for eligibility and contributions. Total wages are used for benefit calculations. So we just want to make sure we had policies that defined each of those and mirrored the same rules that I just mentioned about the service in Connecticut and the non-participating employees. So that's it. I obviously can share the actual language itself prior to the board meeting. We're just at this point asking for approval on Thursday to post them for comment, for notice and public comment. So we can make changes if we need to during that period. But for now, just want to, if there's any questions, concerns about any of the topics I just went over, happy to address them.
Any questions or comments? Michael, I have one. Can you just go through again what the process is from here to finalizing completion of these revisions?
Absolutely. So what we'd hope to do is we'd share with the board prior to the board meeting. The board would vote hopefully on Thursday to post them for notice and comment. They'll probably end up in the CD Law Journal probably about 2 weeks from now. And then it's a 30-day period for the public to review the documents, to provide any notice, ask any questions that they have. And then likely at the April board meeting, we would ask for the final approval so that these would become officially part of the revisions to the existing consolidated policy document.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to the next agenda item. Aaron, would you please provide an update on the finance policies which had been posted for public comment?
Thank you so much. So the finance policies, which feel like we talked about ages and ages ago, were reviewed by the committee and posted for public comment at the end of 2022. They basically were in 4 categories. One was to remove a lot of the procedural details that are not really appropriate for a policy, because the policy statement is kind of the broader statement, and the steps may change based on technology changes. And we also eliminated some duplicate content. We also clarified some of the budgeting and reporting requirements so that we were consistent. And if we were going to reference reports, we were referencing all of them and not just 1 or 2. And then we also made a few changes, particularly relating to the inventory policy language, to update for the fact that we're in a virtual working environment. So both policy and personnel and finance committees reviewed those draft policies before the board posted them. The board posted them in, the board approved us to post them in November. They were posted. They went through the whole 30-day comment period, and we received absolutely no comments whatsoever. So we will be asking the board on Thursday to adopt them without changes.
Okay, any questions or comments for Aaron? Okay, moving to the next old business. Is there any old business that anyone wishes to raise? Hearing nothing, we'll move to new business. Any new business anyone wants to raise? I don't have any new business. I just want to raise a one point, which is 2 days ago, February 5th, was the 30th anniversary of President Clinton signing the Family and Medical Leave Act. And if there is any law that was kind of like the first step, which has led us to where we are today, that was probably it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion to
So
adjourn?
moved. So moved.
Second?
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, the motion carries. The meeting is adjourned, the meeting is ended. It is 9:38. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.